Hi, my name is Dwayne Gathers, and welcome to Civitas LA, featuring diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. These bi-weekly conversations enable us to hear from, learn from, and be inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making our region a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Our goal is to elevate civic discourse, foster community connections, and promote civic knowledge and engagement across the greater Los Angeles region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in that conversation. As a podcast that focuses on those who are doing the hard but necessary work of building community, we're delighted to be joined in studio this morning by two guests who are literally doing just that, building community in those spaces in which we citizens reside. In an article entitled "Women Are Underrepresented in CRE, or Commercial Real Estate, Here's How We Change It," the author notes, while 64% of all residential realtors are women, in commercial real estate that number is roughly 36.7%. Zipia.com, which tracks real estate developer demographics, the numbers further show that amongst developers, women represent 33% versus 67% for men. And as we dig deeper, for Black or African American developers, this group represents roughly 9% of all developers. And as our guests may share, for our region here in Southern California, these numbers are likely substantially lower. So who's building our communities? How are they approaching the ways in which we live and how we live and where we live? Navigating the competitive world of commercial real estate development, two experienced developers are with us today. Ayahlushim, Getachew, principal of the TA Group, and Kacy Keys, founder of Praxis Development Group. They're with us today to share their respective journeys as real estate and economic development professionals before launching their own development firms. Ayahlushim, Kacy, welcome to Civitas LA.
Thank you.
So glad that you're both with us today. It's just great to be here on the beautiful campus of Emerson College on a Saturday morning. You know, Kacy and Ayahlushim, on Civitas LA, we want our guests to share a personal introduction. So let us begin. Let's start alphabetical order. Ayahlushim.
Good morning. My name is Ayahlushim Getachew. I am the owner and president of TA Group and AG Consulting. Okay. We do a lot of real estate from soup to nuts type of work. Everything from identifying sites, from doing, making sure that you go through the initial due diligence, all the way through to turning it over to the construction team in order to build it. We do financing. We do pretty much everything, both in multifamily, commercial spaces, a lot of mixed use more often than not. And I do a lot of affordable housing as well, which is labor of love in many ways.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Kacy, great to see you here. Truth be told here, I'm going to say that Kacy Keys and I served on the board of the Hollywood Chamber some years ago, so it's great to see Kacy in studio. Welcome.
Yes, and Ayahlushim and I met over 20 years ago, actually, when we both worked at the City of LA.
Excellent.
I founded my company 3 years ago in 2019, or launched in 2019, with the express goal of building with purpose. And Praxis, which is my company's Praxis Development Group. Praxis actually means the implementation of, rather than just the idea or the theory of. So the idea of actually doing what we say we're doing rather than just talking about it. Sure. So we're currently working and focused on partnering with institutional and legacy landowners to help them realize vision and value in their properties.
Mm-hmm. No, wonderful.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate that, and we're going to hear more about your experiences with the city and how you've journeyed beyond that role. But before we get into our conversation, we always love the lightning round, where we get to know our guests a little bit deeper through their enjoyment of our region and some of their favorite spots across our region. So are you ready for the lightning round?
Sure.
Okay. So, Kacy, give us a favorite restaurant or two.
There's a Taqueria Los Anaya on Adams, which is a family-owned Mexican restaurant, walking distance from my home.
Okay.
And I also love Factory Kitchen in downtown LA.
Oh, I keep hearing about that place. Okay. Ayahlushim.
I like the sister to Factory Kitchen as well, Brera Ristorante, which is also in downtown LA.
Okay.
But my favorite special event place is Pajoli in Santa Monica.
Oh, outstanding. Well, give us a favorite place to take a sip, whether that's coffee, tea, water, cocktail, Ayahlushim.
Any place with a matcha latte and any place with a view for cocktails.
Okay.
So for me, it's just all about the view.
Okay. About the experience. I like
Yeah.
that. Kacy.
My favorite place to take a sip is in my backyard.
Oh, lovely.
Nice.
Wonderful. Favorite place to take a visitor? Kacy.
That's a tough one. I would say either the beach. I also love the Hollywood Bowl and the Dorothy Chandler.
Okay. First time we've had the Dorothy Chandler mentioned, but the bowl comes up often, as does the beach. Ayahlushim.
Venice, Boardwalk. I
Okay.
mean, there's no place that is more quintessentially Los Angeles than that.
Okay.
That's one. Or our museums. I love our museums.
Okay.
And there's always something very interesting.
Any favorite
That's
museum?
Oh, I love CAM. I love LACMA.
Okay.
So those are two. And the Hammer is pretty fantastic as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We love our open space here in Southern California, so we love hikes and parks and beaches. Give us a favorite park or hike. Kacy.
I just hiked Eaton Canyon on July 4th.
Where's that?
It's in the
Altadena.
Altadena area.
Okay.
And in the winter, there's a waterfall at the end of the hike. So that's a fun one.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Ayahlushim.
I like the Zuma Trails, which is also culminates with a waterfall, but you get beach views as well as the mountains and hills of Malibu.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
We love as we're moving beyond the pandemic, although we've got a variant that's still with us, and activities are coming back in our various communities. Give us a favorite community activity or event, Ayahlushim.
Oh my gosh, an LAFC game. I don't
Okay.
know if anyone's ever gone to one of those games, but they're pretty fantastic. Soccer in Los Angeles.
And for those who are
Los
abroad,
Angeles Football Club.
Los Angeles Football Club, soccer.
Yeah,
We love that.
soccer.
Okay. Kacy.
I'm a dancer. I have been dancing my whole life, so I like to go to events at the Nate Holden Theater on Washington Boulevard as one example, but any sort of arts activity.
Outstanding. Well, that's great. That's a good lineup of favorites. Ayahlushim, you have another one.
We're really lucky in Los Angeles. We have incredible weather all year round. So any festival,
Yeah.
like there's so many festivals that we're so lucky between music and dancing and arts and crafts and everything else. So like all year round, we love those.
Where there was just the Lotus Festival
Yeah,
in
that's
K-Town
true. That's
last
true.
weekend. That's outstanding. So let's begin our dialogue. Let's talk about women in real estate, and particularly as developers. Just share with us, what attracted you first to the real estate industry, and what's been the trajectory of your career in commercial real estate. Ayahlushim, let's start with you.
So what attracted me to real estate was the fact that you could make tangible change pretty quickly. I do a lot of public policy. I do a lot of work in public policy and changing, urban planning rules and making sure you work with those. But there's no better way of making a change in a community than building. And so it's so transformative, it's so catalytic, and it's fairly quick rather than waiting 10, 20 years for policies to actually work and look at those results. So building was the response, and you could see the difference. I started at the redevelopment agency, which was specifically geared to make a difference in a community and to be catalytic in terms of providing economic development opportunities. And so it was a natural that I would go into real estate.
Kacy?
So my grandmother was born in Los Angeles in 1910,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and my entire family was here when I was growing up.
Which community of LA was your family?
Over time, it changed, but originally the Monrovia, East LA area, and then moving west over time. Thanksgiving used to be about 60 people, all family, when I was growing up.
Wow.
And so I heard generationally about the changing fabric of the city over the course of the lives of my elders. And I think that really drew me to this profession, because it's the built environment and the changing urban fabric that you can really see and make a difference. And I've been lucky enough to be involved in multiple product types: office, retail, multifamily, performance arts venues, and all of that, if done well, can contribute positively to neighborhoods and the city overall. And I'd say that's what drew me to the profession.
Mm-hmm. Well, I note that, and you both mentioned it, that you met working for the city. Ayahlushim, I think you were at the redevelopment agency for the city of Los Angeles, and
Correct.
Kacy, you were in the mayor's office. How do you think, how do you think your role in the public sector shaped your view of the city and shaped your view of how you're proceeding in your work in the private sector currently? Ayahlushim, do you want to start there?
First of all, I think there was no better learning place than being a public servant and working within the city environment. The redevelopment agency was an incredible masterclass, basically, for me. It gave me opportunities that I never would have had. I worked on projects that were beyond, what I could have ever envisioned. I was responsible for geographic areas, including Bunker Hill, downtown. I had huge geographic areas that I was responsible for, and worked on projects, everything from Disney Concert Hall to, the Coburn School to parks to, Adams Vermont Shopping Center, as an example. So it was a multitude of experiences, and the learning was incredible that you could get from that, including affordable housing. We built about 1,000 units of affordable housing a year at that time at the redevelopment agency. So it was an incredible opportunity to learn. It was an incredible opportunity to also understand the importance, as Kacy put it, of the transformative nature of development is just so important, because a lot of times, there are a lot of fabulous ideas people have, elected officials, public officials, and those just don't translate as quickly as making, bricks and mortar changes in communities. And so that was something that was evident every single day as part of my redevelopment work.
No. Kacy, please.
I would reiterate what Ayahlushim said about the vast learning curve and ability to be exposed. So I started my career off as a lawyer, and then I elected to go to the city and took an enormous pay cut to do it. But the exchange was, I was, as a young person, working on Disney Hall, Staples Center, helped to spearhead the adaptive reuse ordinance in downtown LA, which is basically was catalytic to everything that's come since then. Hollywood and Highland, all these gigantic projects that are complex in nature, have intricate funding structures and multiple parties, and being able to touch those projects and be exposed and working on them early in my career helped to launch me in a way that I think if I had gone a private sector route would have probably taken a lot longer, and I would not have gotten the well-rounded appreciation of the public sector side. So now as a private developer, when I deal with the public sector, I have a much greater appreciation of what's happening on that side of the table, and I think that helps me to more effectively do my job and get to the end goal.
Yeah. And, Ayahlushim referenced that she was at the redevelopment agency for the city of Los Angeles. Where was your public sector work for the city of Los Angeles?
I was in the Mayor's Office of Economic Development,
Okay.
and my territory was downtown LA and Hollywood.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we overlapped in the work that we did.
Well, certainly, Ayahlushim, you were involved in a lot of transformative projects that have really, panned out over the years in downtown Los Angeles, for sure. But you talked about the transformational nature of real estate development and to see these communities unfold. And interestingly enough, the question is, who's behind those projects? Who's making that happen? The National Association of Realtors had a report that said that while women make up a majority of real estate agents, women in commercial real estate represent only, maybe a third. And as we said earlier, in the development space, even fewer women in that space. So, what are your thoughts on what appears to be this low rate of representation, particularly in commercial real estate and particularly amongst the developer community? And how has your experience been as a developer? Let's start with Kacy, because I remember when you and I served on the Chamber Board, you were with a prominent, real estate development firm.
Yeah. I mean, I think those statistics probably are reflecting the brokerage community. And on the development side, it is really a male-dominated part of the profession. We could probably dig into a lot of reasons why that is. Some of it is kind of old boys club. Some of it is access to capital and generational wealth. Some of it is, growing up, being trained in the profession by family or mentors. where that wasn't my story. And I think, really coming at it and having to really fight at the beginning of my career to be valid in the room was a huge hurdle to overcome. And took a lot of tenacity and a lot of thick skin to not get discouraged or feel dismissed, even when I was dismissed out of hand. And I've been lucky enough in my career, including the mayor when I worked with him, to have had mentors who didn't do that and actually saw my drive and my determination and my interest and passion for what I was doing and did not discriminate or have bias against me because I wasn't white male. And those people really made a difference in my ability to keep moving forward in my career. And Jerry Snyder, who you mentioned, I worked for him for 11 years, was an amazing man who passed away last year in 2020. But that was just a pivotal experience in my career that he took me in, and really by the end of our time together, I was kind of his right-hand person in the company, and was just very grateful to have had that.
Yeah. Certainly, we've heard a lot about the importance of mentors and allies, and I refer back, always to episode 37 with Reiko Kerr and Phyllis Curry, Women in Power, and talking about women in the utility sector, which there are a few as well, and we talk about the importance of that. Ayahlushim, can you point to the importance of male allies, particularly in the redevelopment agency as a public sector enterprise using public sector dollars, how that's impacted your work and your career?
Oh, I think something that I forgot to mention earlier is, as part of our public service, one of the things beyond the experience of being able to work on these incredible projects, which we otherwise would never have had an opportunity to do, was also the number of people we came into contact and the networks we were able to build.
Important.
That was critical. I agree with Kacy. It's a very male-dominated industry, very white male-dominated industry, and especially thinking about, and everybody assumes when they hear that I'm in the real estate field, actually, even people, African Americans, people of my race assume that I'm a broker or I'm a property manager and not a developer, because that is so rare, and you wouldn't think that, given that we're living in the second largest city in the country. Like, you would think there would be more.
So even in the second largest city in the country.
Even in the second largest city in the country, we I don't know of another African American woman who's doing this, and I think that people might try. I think there are a lot of people who are doing it in the nonprofit space in affordable housing. We, as part of the redevelopment agency, worked to create capacity at that time in the nonprofit industry. However, on the for-profit side, I don't know if that happens a lot. The important thing about networks is I also had a number of mentors who were white men who were so supportive of me, and the contacts I made were through my public service work. Jim Thomas was one of those. Actually, it's a funny story because he was opposed to a project I was shepherding through in Bunker Hill, and showed up to speak in opposition, as
Really?
as McGuire Thomas, as the Thomas and McGuire Thomas, showed up to speak, and the council voted for it, approved it, and after that called me and said, "Kiddo, you need to work with me," and so he was the guy who always told me that, and when he sold the company, I said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" I went to work for him, and 7 years later, he sold the company, and I said, "What am I going to do?" And he said, "Kiddo, you've been doing this for me. You can absolutely do this for yourself," and so he was the one who said, "Get out there, do it. You can do this. You can do this for yourself." So we've all had a number of people, which is really nice to hear Kacy say also, who are mentors who have pushed us, who have said, "You can do this." And it hasn't been about race. It hasn't been about being about gender. It has been about just capacity and merit.
So that's a great segue. What compelled you to set out on your own, to set up your own real estate development firm here in Los Angeles? When did you do that? What were the circumstances? And what are the types of projects that you're working on, Kacy?
Yeah, I jokingly say, but it's true, that for many years I've made a whole lot of money for a lot of other people. And it's not for me. It's actually not about the money. It's about the work. And when I was at Snyder, I did amazing projects and amazing work that we can drive around town and point to. I did that.
959 Seward.
959 Seward, 1601 Vine, Bella Terra in Huntington Beach, the Vermont. There's lots of amazing projects that I got to work on with Jerry. And then in 2016, I left, and I was recruited actually by someone who I had negotiated across the table from on a deal to work for Seritage Growth Properties and head up their entire Western U.S. region and open an office. And I was working on 65 projects in 12 states.
Wow.
And while the work was amazing and the demand on me to become a manager and elevate the challenge for myself was real and beneficial, the work was not fulfilling to me. And it wasn't just about churning development to churn development. So at that time, like Ayahlushim says, I looked in the mirror and I said, if not now, when? And I said, I'm going to go out and do my own thing. And I want to do this purposeful paced development, and I want to use my skill set to have an impact locally. And I believe that I can do it. And so what I'm working on right now is I'm currently building out a campus for the West Angeles Church, which is one of the largest black churches in South Los Angeles.
In the Crenshaw District.
In the Crenshaw District. And I'm building a family life center for them, which is a multi-use building. Has a chapel, has a fellowship hall, it has a counseling center, it has classrooms, education, administrative offices. So that's a build to suit. It's under construction right now. And I can say is the project that was entitled, designed, and permitted all during COVID.
Wow.
So there's actually members of the design team that I never met face to face.
Okay.
And I'm also partnering with a family that has owned property on Crenshaw since the 1980s on 54th and Crenshaw. And they're our partners, and we're building 48 units of housing with an inclusionary component there. And then I'm working on a project in the city of Riverside that'll probably be about 56 units of housing near UC Riverside.
Wonderful.
So that's what we're doing right now. We started in January of 2019.
Okay.
So that's not bad for 3 years.
Pretty
And you're
impressive.
still standing. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Ayahlushim, tell us, what compelled you, how long you've been at it, and what are the types of initiatives you're working on?
So I started in 2013 when, as I said, I previously was with Thomas Properties Group, working on entitlements for projects in Los Angeles and Los Angeles County, and major projects. And then when this company was sold, and I decided to go out on my own after getting a little nudge from Jim Thomas, and that was in 2013. Subsequent to that, I also formed TA Group in 2016. So I've got a consulting side and I've got the actual development side. On the development side, I've been extremely lucky, extremely lucky, in that I think one of the reasons why the numbers are so low, especially with people who are trying to break in, who come from non-traditional backgrounds, is because there's just no access to capital. It's a very difficult thing. Pre-development, for the most part, is something that you have to fund yourself and or have, a source of funding for. Banks will not give you money for that. Same thing, you've got to have the ability and the wherewithal to be able to get equity. So I have backing from a family fund that has been pretty incredible, again, through connections, through the work that I have previously done. And so they have confidence, given the number of projects that I've done with them and the returns that they've been able to realize. They have confidence, and as a result, they're very supportive of anything that I bring forward. It's pretty much, I'm empowered to make decisions. It's as if because it's my own, basically, and it is my own because I've got equity in it. And as a result, we're working on a number of projects that are very exciting. We have an affordable housing side under Friendship for Affordable Housing is the name of the company that does that, or the development entity that does that. We're working on 3 projects on the VA campus in Westwood, doing veteran homeless housing. We were lucky in that we got a number of HHH projects approved through the city of Los Angeles. We also provide financing for projects that are in need of dollars. As I said, we're very lucky. We've got a family fund.
Well,
that
I think
is,
Kacy needs dollars.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
There we go.
I did reach out to her after our
Okay.
initial conversation.
Okay, that's
so
good to
we'll
see.
see where that goes.
We love collaboration.
Yeah, you know, it was interesting as I was thinking about it. It works. It's part of our mission as well to improve communities, and so it was in sync. We also have market rate projects we're working on. So we've got affordable housing projects that are phenomenal, and then we've got market rate projects in South Pasadena, in Long Beach, in Sacramento, and some others in other parts of LA County.
Well, you touched on the fact that you've had these great mentors, and you've touched on the fact that you've been able, particularly through your public sector work, to build these networks and relationships. And I think an article that I shared with you both that we talked about was these key ingredients being skills, which you both have, equity, access to financing, relationships, and really great attorneys. So those are all the tools that you need. So how have you been able to navigate all of those, and what are the challenges for others to navigate all of those resources to be able to advance your objectives? Kacy, do you want?
Well, I think access to capital and financing is the biggest hurdle. And as Ayahlushim said, in the pre-development space, it's very difficult to raise any money for that. Whereas in like the VC world, somebody can have an idea on a napkin, and people in Silicon Valley will write checks for hundreds of thousands of dollars. They won't, for whatever reason, do that for real estate. So, and for example, in the city of LA, they just raised their fees. So we just filed our entitlements on our project on Crenshaw and 54th, $40,000 just to file the entitlements.
Wow.
So that doesn't include paying the architect. That doesn't include paying your landscape architect or your environmental consultant or any of that. So you really
Geotech, structural, all of the other
that.
elements
and
that you
so
need. Yeah.
to get to the point where you can get a permit on this job is probably a $25 million job. It costs about $700,000, and you have to find that money. That's the biggest challenge. And this friends and family category is where a lot of, I would say, people who have generational wealth can go when they have country club memberships or the like. But if you're not in that world, it's a big challenge. I will say, going back to your comment about the percentages of women in the business, that I have made some great connections in the group of us that are underrepresented, so people of color and women in the business. And I've made some great networking connections there on the finance side. And so trying to tap into those networks in order to raise money. But, there's lots of minimum thresholds, so figuring out how we fit is our biggest challenge right now. I, too, started the company with an investor out of Utah. And we had 4 projects under contract in 2019, and then they do their own development in Utah and Kansas City and Texas and the Carolinas, and they looked at how hard it was here, and they basically backed away, having nothing to do with me, and they said we can't wrap our head around this process in Los Angeles. And so I'm trying right now. My goal is to develop partnerships to replace that. And so really trying to figure out who those partnerships are that are willing to invest on the front end is our biggest challenge right now.
Ayahlushim, you're about to say something.
The uncertainties. I mean, real estate, the biggest issue is the uncertainty of it all, right? And entitlement is a huge uncertainty, especially in a place like the city of Los Angeles. And so that is what causes people to be squeamish about putting any dollars in, right? And also how long you're going to have to wait. The process here is, especially after COVID and the resources that have been diminished at the planning department, it could take you up to 3 years, 4 years to be entitled. We're doing a project in Sacramento. They have some very specific guidelines. Downtown Sacramento, you do 85 feet or less, you have a 4-month entitlement process.
Wow.
We're getting a statutory exemption because we don't have anything historic. We don't have anything that requires an M&D or anything else. So from a CEQA perspective, you're cleared, and you have a 4-month process. This team, this planning department, put together everybody that would ever have to look at your application for a pre-application meeting, did a Zoom call with us where everybody was on it, gave us comments to the pre-application submission that we gave them, and said, "We're so excited and looking forward to you coming."
Wow.
It's such a different, so the risk is so much higher in Los Angeles that it makes it difficult.
Well, I think there's some lessons to be learned there that we can share with our friends at the city.
That's
But
true.
certainly, 2 summers ago, during the summer of protests and the issues around racial equity, there were any number of announcements made, and going back to the conversation about capital and access to capital. And certainly, I think Citigroup or Citibank announced a $200 million equity and financing for minority developers for affordable housing. Goldman Sachs had an initiative for black developers, initiative again for affordable housing fund. U.S. Bank and Enterprise Community Partners had a $30 million bond, again for affordable housing for developers of color. J.P. Morgan Chase had an initiative to advance racial equity, again that talked about expanding affordable rental housing in low-income communities. What are your thoughts on these initiatives, and have they sort of washed down to you all as developers to say, yes, this works for me, or this does not work for me, given what I'm trying to do in this particular market? Kacy, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm going to sound very skeptical.
Which you're allowed to do.
When all of that first came out, it reminded me of the Me Too movement and all of the buzz after the Me Too movement that was going to make all these dramatic changes for women that just didn't materialize, frankly. And post George Floyd, when all of these announcements were made, I think the total corporate commitment was something like $35 or $40 billion. My first question was, really? Okay. And what I will tell you is, doing 2 projects right now in partnership with black institutions and black families, we can't get in the door. I mean, so United Way Housing Fund has a housing initiative. We've talked to them, and I don't want to knock that program. I think it's a great program, and I think it's helping certain developers in certain sorts of parameters. But they said, well, you have to have all the equity lined up before we can come in. And I said, well, if we had all the equity lined up, we wouldn't need you.
We wouldn't need you.
We wouldn't need you, right? We looked at City Impact Fund. We've looked at some of the others, and whether it's the size of the deal that we're doing, that some funds only want to invest in a deal that's $100 million. So if you're in the $20 to $30 million range, they're like, well, we don't want to write that small of a check. I'm like, well, I can't write a check for $10 million, so I need to find that somewhere. So I'm not discouraged in the sense that we're going to keep looking, and I'm assuming we just haven't turned over enough stones yet. But the ones that are in the headlines haven't materialized for us.
Right.
At the size of deal we're doing, and obviously I'm not African American myself, but I'm partnering with African Americans in both instances, and it hasn't played out in those 2 instances thus far. Yeah. We'll see what happens in Riverside. We're not there yet.
Yeah. Ayahlushim, what are your thoughts on these initiatives, and have they been, and are they beneficial to what you're trying to do?
So I do a lot of affordable housing. I do affordable housing through tax credits and bonds through the state of California. I go through the process, the TCAC process and the CIDLAC process. And I'm a little bit cynical. I think it's important. I really support affordable housing, and so I know, because I put my money where my mouth is, but I think that communities, especially underserved communities, need more than that. I think they do need market rate housing. I think that they need options. They need moderate income housing, which is also a very difficult thing to fund. I mean, people will do very low and low income and for the homeless, but they won't do moderate income for the teacher, the firefighter, the police officer. It's like, and we really need that in our communities as well. I think also we need galleries, we need coffee shops, we need all of the other things. We need some retail, we need everything else funded. So I appreciate that they're doing that. I think, though, that there already have been a lot of programs with regards to the Community Reinvestment Act and CRA, and where banks have been providing support for affordable housing, et cetera. I think what we need is other options as well. We need actual equity. We need support, and for people who are trying to come into the business and don't have, as I said, traditional means of being able to access capital, that's what they need. I have read about some programs that are pretty successful already and that have given me hope. Wyndham Hotels apparently announced that they were doing a program with regards to increasing women and minority-owned hotel ownership and are providing capital for it because they understand it's a very capital-intensive business and that's how you do it. And people, so they have 10 projects or something underway since the George Floyd incident. There are a couple of other companies that are also doing something similar in terms of whatever their niches are. However, I just think that it has not yet translated to my sector in the way that it should, and I think people can do more. These corporations can do more.
So if you were structuring, and that's my next question, so if you were structuring an initiative yourselves that you thought could address the broader population, maybe deal sizes, geographies, project types, how would you structure an initiative that you think might be more impactful? Sure, Kacy. Yeah.
First of all, I think that, and this may be, pie in the sky, but I think that when you look at somebody's track record in the industry, should be a relevant factor, not just do you have a bank account to back it up. And so I think there are ways to structure things that will allow someone like myself, who doesn't have a balance sheet to provide guarantees or things like that, to get financed and to have equity or create investment vehicles. As I said, if venture capital funds can fund ideas on the back of a napkin for hundreds and hundreds of apps and ideas.
How many pet food ideas were there back in the
.com
days?
This and there should be a similar sort of venture arena for real estate and for emerging managers that are people of color or women or other underrepresented folks in the industry who have experience, who have the skills, who have the contacts, who can point to the 25 or 30 projects that they've successfully executed on. And I don't really think that exists. It's, and there's a real desire in the industry because it does take just as much work for a $25 million project as it does for a $250 million project.
Sure.
So they've just decided, well, we only want to write big checks. But there's if you look around town, there's a whole lot of stuff going up that doesn't fit in that box that's making money and providing housing and other services and other sorts of spaces for people.
There's a lot of stuff going on between $5 and $50 million.
Exactly.
Absolutely. A lot of the infill.
A lot of the infill. And so there needs to be, and if the private sector doesn't figure that out, which they should, because I think they're actually missing out on opportunity by placing these minimum thresholds, the public sector should be able to figure that out, and create some sort of mechanism that's real to be of help.
Well, Ayahlushim, given that you are with the redevelopment agency, which no longer exists, which I think we are regretting that we no longer have redevelopment agencies, that's my next question. How do you view the role of government? One article that I read and shared with you both was that in D.C. they had a very specific initiative around minority-run companies and giving them priority access to redevelopment projects, and I think New York City has copied that model. What is the role or a role for government that either the City of L.A. or the County of LA government could be playing to support women and minority-owned, smaller, mid-sized developers?
Oh, I think those programs are really important. I think those programs should exist across the board. And frankly, our populations are changing. That with the minorities becoming the majority, you want to be more inclusive. There's no better way. And frankly, you can also relate better to the communities in which you're developing, and people have interest in and creating, transformative endeavors in these communities. If you are from that community, more likely be interested in doing that. So I absolutely think at one point there was a battle about fund management, and so you've got CalSTRS, you've got CalPERS. The number of people who are minorities who are allotted an allocation from those dollars are pretty minimal, So it trickles all the way down, and those are real estate funds for the most part in which they're investing. So I think that it should exist across the board. I think there's a role for government to do that, and they should be encouraged to do that. If the redevelopment agency existed, I'm sure we'd be doing programs that would support moderate income housing, because
Sure.
that is a huge niche that is being missed, and that is why housing is so unaffordable in the city of Los Angeles. For example, if you are a firefighter or a police officer, you should not live 40 miles, 50 miles from where you're stationed, or where you're supposed to be serving and with the communities you're serving. People just cannot afford it. I think also there should be capacity programs that include public and private dollars that come together in order to be able to provide the pre-development funds. We used to do things like that in order to be able to encourage different types of developers and give different types of developers the experience and the know-how.
No, that's wonderful. As you think about your careers in the public sector and also the private sector, and maybe as female developers, how do you view the landscape of our region? You talked about the challenge of getting things done in the process of getting things entitled, but how do you view the landscape of our region and how that informs the type of work that you're looking to do going forward? How do you perceive opportunity, and what types of projects or geographies of the area sort of excite you as you grow your firms? Kacy?
Well, I've been lucky enough over the course of my career to be very local in my work and also be national. And so what's really interesting is when I was working on 65 assets in 12 states, you really see the difference, as Ayahlushim pointed out, in how the local jurisdiction impacts your ability to get something done. And politics and all sorts of other dynamics that go into getting anything done. And, for us, our goal is to expand as a company and to continue to refine our business model. We also have a consulting arm that kind of pays the light bills as we try to do some of the riskier stuff. And we have people that want to come work with us. And so our goal is to be able to expand more broadly. Ayahlushim and I have actually talked about some of the communities that I'm looking at. Long Beach I like, San Pedro I like. And then looking at other jurisdictions where I did previous work to kind of expand. There's only so many hours in the day. Right. And I only have so much energy.
We all only get 24 hours.
Yes. I'm a big believer in sleep. Yeah. So, I just get up every day and say, today's a new day and let's see what it brings. And we have strategy meetings every month to talk about where are we going, what's our business model, what's changed. And for me, in my career, I've been so fortunate that the best stuff has come organically. Every opportunity that's been a great opportunity, whether it's an employment opportunity that's come my way or a deal, has come organically, not because I'm kind of out there actively kind of, seeking it out. Although I'm every day being myself, networking, doing what I do, the best things have come in a more organic way. So I kind of have this ethereal belief that if you keep your focus on what you're trying to do and you keep that positive kind of manifestation, it will happen. Now, some days you catch me, I might be a little more negative than that. But I think generally that resonates. And so...
And as you mentioned, two specific communities, Long Beach and San Pedro, as potential areas of opportunity that you've got an eye on. What type of product? Housing?
I think, right now, multifamily is what's needed.
Okay.
And I also am a big believer in the Inland Empire area. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the Inland Empire. I think areas like Sacramento, kind of what would be considered secondary markets. I think there's a lot of opportunity in those markets. We're also looking, I started my career, as I mentioned, in adaptive reuse, and I think there's real opportunities for adaptive reuse now. So we're talking about, we would need a partner to help us purchase the properties, but I think there are going to be opportunities for office buildings and other sorts of spaces that are no longer going to, we have too much retail space, we have too much office space, we don't have enough housing. So rather than building from scratch, there might be opportunities to reutilize and revamp buildings. So we're looking at that too.
Yeah. So Ayahlushim, to you as well, as you look at the landscape of our region and your business model going forward, what are some of the geographies that excite you or project types that excite you going forward?
we're excited by the whole region, to be honest with you. Again, because of the population size, because of the needs that are ongoing. I'm excited by the whole region. As I said to you, we have projects that are as far-flung as Sacramento, even though we're based in Los Angeles, because Kacy is correct. Most of the projects at this point come to us through other people because we have a track record and they know what we do, and they know that, the type of financing that we have, that we're able to close immediately, we're able to turn around very quickly and make decisions very quickly, which is really a benefit. And as a result, she said things come to her organically. Absolutely, same here. People refer projects to us. People identify us as the funder that they would like and or the partner that they would like. So we've been very lucky with regards to that. The projects that we're currently working on the multifamily market side are all projects that people have brought to us.
Gotcha.
So we're very lucky. Brokers bring them to us if they think that something would be interested in. If it's got a little hair on it, given my background in entitlements, where I'm not afraid of it.
Okay.
I actually, the more
Fearless, I like that.
more complex, more multidimensional, the more interesting it is. Unfortunately. And I think something else that is really important is people know you can do the job and do it well. I think Kacy, her breadth of experience, my breadth of experience, we really know what we're doing, and we do it really well. I don't know if women ever say that about themselves, but we really do. And so people have confidence in that, and so that's why they will bring us deals, they will bring us, and so I'm excited about most of the region. We have a project in South Pasadena. It's because we love the Inland Empire. I think we have the best site in the Inland Empire. It's at Main and Main, basically, for everything, and we're excited about it. South Pasadena is a great community, and we think it's a place where, you could use phenomenal housing, and it's a beautiful, sophisticated, and charming part of the region. We also have a project in Long Beach on Ocean Avenue, Ocean Boulevard. Sorry, yes, I forgot. Ocean Boulevard. So we're excited about that too, and it's been really great working with that team as well, and the city of Long Beach. So it just depends on the location. It's the type of project and the size of the project and whether or not it will pencil. Kacy said she's not guided by money. I think that's important, given that I have to report to a family fund. I will concede. That is important to me.
Well, I want to correct. No, I definitely want to make money.
Yes.
It is not the sole motivation.
But it's
for
not
what I
the
do.
sole motivation. We really, really do projects. We undertake projects that will make a difference and that are aesthetically as well as from services and what we provide in terms of the project itself are enhancements to any community.
Well,
can I just add one thing?
Please do. Go ahead.
So the other thing I think that's interesting about Southern California in particular is there's a very interesting statistic I read recently that LA, San Diego, Riverside, and Orange County represent almost 10% of the U.S. population. In those four counties. So we come across funders who basically say, "Oh, we don't do business in California." I'm like, look at the market.
You're
that's
missing
here.
10% of the
yes,
population
it's
of the
difficult
US,
to do business here. There's a reason that it's difficult, but it is 10% of the U.S. population.
Sure.
Wow.
So there's opportunity there. Yeah.
Well, I am certain that our former guest, Mr. Rex Richardson, the vice mayor of Long Beach,
fantastic.
would welcome knowing that both of you have Long Beach on your agendas going forward. So
The future mayor of Long Beach. Crossing fingers.
November 9 we'll find out.
Yes,
But
yes.
I'm sure Mr. Richardson will appreciate that. Well, this dialogue has been great, and it's been great to see both of you in studio this morning, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing in building community, literally. So we look forward to following your progress and visiting your projects on site when we can do that as well. So as we say on Civitas LA, the guest gets the final word. Any concluding thoughts or any calls to action that you want to share with our audience today? Ayahlushim.
I just want, if there are, women out there who want to do this, I just want them to know that they can. I just want to, in some way, make clear that while it may be difficult, and while you have those days, as Kacy said, are negative, you have negative perspectives, just keep going at it because you can. And, one of the reasons why I love what I do is because I'm my own boss. I think there's nothing like that in the world. And so you can do well, you can do good, and be your own boss at the same time. And so I love what I do.
Doing well, doing good, and being one's own boss. Great
Yeah.
concluding thoughts. Ms. Keys, the final word.
I would say ditto to everything that you just said. And I would also say, as we were talking, that I think something that's really important in this business is being good to work with and having integrity. And it goes a long way. And there's a lot of people in this business that don't fit either one or both of those things. And so for me, well, we may be small and scrappy at this point in time. I know emphatically that when people talk about me, she's good to work with and she has integrity. And I think that speaks volumes, whoever you are in this business or in the world, as you go through your, daily life.
Right.
And by the way, whomever you come across as you are coming up, as you are doing one deal, you will come across again. No matter what. It's a small industry. It's the same people over and over again. So what she says is so important because people will work with you over and over and over again and will call on you. And as well, as I said, as she said as well, that projects come to us organically. It's because people know we will deliver. We will tell them the truth. If we can do it, we say we will do it. If we can't, we say we won't. No games played. You have integrity, you have honor, then you continue to have relationships.
Yeah. It is a big city, it's a big region, but it really does operate like a small town, indeed. Kacy and Ayahlushim, thank you very much for joining us today. This has been a great conversation. We really appreciate all that you are doing and all that you'll continue to do. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks as we look forward to yet another great civic conversation with civic entrepreneurs driving our region forward as we move into our 3rd year of Civitas LA. Until we meet again, stay strong and get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com and connect with us on Facebook at Civitas LA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and Twitter at Civitas_LA.